All right, it's time once again for the Press Box Podcast. This is episode number 116 today, and it's been a while since we've last come out with an episode. So, in today's episode, we're going to touch on a variety of things, a potpourri, if you will. Kind of dating back to April, talk a little bit about the NFL draft, and then kind of work our way through the summer months, hitting on some baseball, some NBA. Of course, we just had the finals finish up. Even a tiny bit of hockey maybe as well, before kind of taking a look at where we are now, right before the NFL is about to start and heading into the fall. So a little bit of everything in this episode, kind of catch up from where we left off. But before we get into the episode, let's remind you, as always, about our Twitter account at PressBoxPod, and then YouTube as well. It's a great place to find some snippets and cut-ups of previous episodes, and we'll keep bringing those to you on all the platforms we can. Last but not least, rate and subscribe on iTunes. Always enjoy hearing from our listeners there as well. Without further ado, let's get into this episode, number 116 of the Press Box Podcast.
Okay, welcome back to the Press Box Podcast. This is your co-host, Ralph Miranda. I'll be joined by my co-host, Joseph Miranda, our producer, Nathan Miranda. It's been a while since we've talked to everyone back there in podcast land. I know we've been a little bit lax in getting these podcasts out, but, life gets in the way and things happen. But here we are. We're back with episode 116. And like I said, it's probably been now almost 4 months since our last podcast was released. A lot has happened in the sports world, and I think what we'll do is we'll just kind of touch on each month kind of in generic terms and talk a little bit about what happened in those months. And then that'll bring us up to speed to the present. We still have our Twitter account at PressBoxPod, so you can still check out our Twitter account. Of course, our Instagram account at PressBoxPod, and then the YouTube channel, the PressBox Podcast. So let's get started. Joseph, I guess it's been March since we've had a podcast. I think the last thing we talked about was NFL free agency and all the moves there. Of course, now most teams have had their off-season activities, and these free agents have been assimilated into the teams with practices. And now that it's July, most teams have ceased operations. Coaches are on vacations, and pretty soon training camps will be opening in about I think about 3 weeks. So it's almost football time.
Yeah, that's right. August preseason will be here. Preseason's only, I think, 2 weeks this year.
That's right.
Yeah. So that's always an exciting time since you get that first look at NFL being back. Kind of picking up where we left off. We talked about a lot of the free agent moves, I think. Obviously the draft is held in April.
Right.
That, whatever teams did or didn't get in free agency, they obviously solidified their roster through the draft, or hopefully they did.
Right. For their sake. Yeah.
Yeah, right. Exactly. Again, I've said on this podcast a lot of times, I don't really follow college football that closely, so I'm not up on all the college players that were drafted. But you want to start off to give some thoughts on some guys that were.
Yeah, I'd be glad to. Obviously the big names. It was the defensive end from Michigan who went. I think he went first in the draft to the Jaguars, and of course there was a couple of running backs that went, I would say, pretty high, not real high. Mostly offensive linemen were taken in the first round. Iowa, as usual, had a good offensive lineman. I think there was a couple guys from Alabama. In fact, the Giants drafted an Alabama offensive lineman. And a lot of defensive edge rushers went in the draft as well. The Giants got a guy from Oregon. I mentioned the guy from Michigan, and there were, quite a few others that went as well. So I think this draft, quarterback, as it usually is a big position, was not so much this year. I think, if I'm not mistaken, the first quarterback drafted was not drafted until the second round. So it was a very, very thin quarterback market. Everybody thinks that the cream of the quarterback market is going to be next year. with the Ohio State quarterback coming out, the Alabama quarterback coming out, and then 2 or 3 other ones as well coming out next year. So
the first
that should
quarterback
kind of bring
was,
things back.
yeah, I was gonna say the first quarterback was that actually the Pittsburgh quarterback was taken number 20, Kenny Pickett.
Okay, so he was taken in the first round.
Yeah,
Okay,
so the first
good.
round.
All right, yeah, he was the first one. He was kind of thought to be maybe the first one that would go, but number 20 is obviously very low for a quarterback, given the recent years. So that was that. But I think the big news out of college football, really, which really just happened last week, is Southern California, the USC, and UCLA have joined the Big Ten Conference, which is really, really pretty interesting. Because now you've got you've already had Texas and Oklahoma commit to the Southeastern Conference. They'll start play there, I think, in 2024. You've got USC and UCLA now eventually going to the Big Ten. That's going to pretty much put a big hole in the Pac-12 conference. I know they're scurrying for teams right now, but I think what you're going to see in the college football landscape here within 3 or 4 years is you're going to see pretty much 2 major conferences. I mean, you're going to see the Southeastern Conference and maybe the Big Ten. The Big Ten is going to has the Fox Network rights, or Fox Network has the Big Ten rights, and I believe ESPN now has the SEC rights. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens as more and more teams start going to these conferences, which kind of brings up the Notre Dame issue, and Notre Dame may be forced to join a conference because they won't be able to schedule anybody. So it's going to be interesting over the next year to 2 years to see exactly how that all shakes out.
A lot of these teams that Notre Dame is playing right now that are in the ACC, are they? If the ACC would start to kind of thin out and move to the SEC or whatever, Notre Dame could just probably sign some type of deal like they have now, but sign with the SEC, right? I mean,
they could. Yeah, they could. I think if well, let me step back. Every sport at Notre Dame is a member of the ACC, with the exception of football and hockey. Now, the reason hockey isn't is because there's really no hockey teams in the ACC because they're mostly Southern teams, But if Notre Dame were to go, say, to the Big Ten, then I think everybody would be in the Big Ten. All their sports would be Big Ten sports, including the hockey team.
You don't think the football would do whatever? Because right now they have some type of deal, right, where they play like an ACC schedule, but they're not.
Well, they do. They play 5 ACC games a year, but they're not eligible for the conference championship. The only year they were was the pandemic year, 2020.
Well, couldn't they do something similar then with the Big Ten or the SEC if everything moved to just like 2 major conferences?
Yeah, they could. Really, the question for I think if Notre Dame keeps their NBC contract, I doubt you're going to see them join a conference. But and they may very well do that because NBC would feel like, we really don't have any college football, and this gives us, the University of Notre Dame. I think the problem is Notre Dame going to be able to schedule USC every year? Are they going to be able to schedule, some of these other big teams that they play, like Clemson? Well, Clemson they would, but they were supposed to play Arkansas a couple of years ago, or they played Georgia a couple of years. Would they be able to schedule these teams if they're members of a super conference where they're playing, all these games? Why would you want to schedule Notre Dame in that situation? So I don't know. I mean, I don't know.
Oh, I see. You're saying that there'll be so many more teams in their conference that they'll have a full schedule. They won't have room for Notre Dame, basically.
Yeah. I think that could be a big part of it.
But I think that's it may be maybe for Georgia, maybe. But I feel like Notre Dame and USC, that's such a rivalry. I feel like they'd always make a point to play each other, right?
You would think so. But I don't know. I don't know all the different hidden meanings behind it, and what these. I don't know what kind of pressure these networks would put on these teams. In that situation. I don't know.
So what's left in the Pac-12 now? Just like Oregon, Arizona State, right? Arizona, all those teams.
Washington State. Teams that really don't amount to much. So it's not going to. Yeah, Oregon's about the only one, but anyway, that's college football. We've had the draft. We've had this the moving of teams around, and then I guess we got to April after the draft, and of course, baseball started a little bit late this year because they couldn't settle their lockout. But they did finally get started, and they're going to play a full season. They'll make up those first 2 series eventually down the road. And right now, it looks like the cream of the American League and baseball is the New York Yankees. I mean, they're sitting at 58-21, which is, I think they have like a 14-game lead in the East, which is unheard of. Of course, the Astros have a 12-game lead in the West, and then the Central Division is being fought out right now between the Twins and the former Cleveland Indians, who are now the Guardians. In the National League, it's really pretty interesting. You got the Mets finally living up to expectations with all their moves. They're a good 20 games over 500. The Braves have won, I believe, 16 or 17 straight. They are putting a little pressure on the Mets right now. It looks like to be a two-team race in the NL East. Central is going to be a two-team race between Milwaukee and St. Louis. And then in the West, it's actually a three-team race right now between the Dodgers, who are in first place, the Padres, and the San Francisco Giants. So, you've probably got all three National League divisions seem to be pretty tight right now. In the American League, you have one, the Central Division, that looks to be pretty tight. The other two are right now runaways. But baseball is moving along. I mean, you've got Aaron Judge. He's hit like 29 home runs already, and we're not even at the All-Star break. So it's heating up. It's an interesting season, and that's baseball.
I like to say,
Justin, what about? Go ahead.
I was going to say, I just want to say that I like to see the Yankees. I feel like they're slowly climbing back to being like a not just a dominant team, but like a team with some some big stars that just kind of embody the Yankees. You know, they have Giancarlo Stanton and Judge now, and I know they've had it for some years now, but they're starting to. The more years that go by, you start to associate them with the Yankees more and more. I know Judge always played for the Yankees, but Stanton, especially. I just feel like they have these two power hitters now in the middle of their lineup that, are becoming more recognizable with the city of New York and the Yankees. And I feel like the Yankees are starting to build almost like a new, not that they'll win a lot of World Series, but they're starting to build like a new dynasty almost after the Jeter dynasty, And I feel like from the time Jeter retired to now, it's like they haven't really had stars that you could really feel like you could build a dynasty around. They just kind of had a lot of guys, but now I feel like they're starting to have some pretty big stars. I don't know. What do you think? Does that make sense?
No, it does. I think the difference is the Jeter era. You had the big names from that era: Posada, Jeter, Pettit, Bernie Williams, Rivera. They were all homegrown Yankees through the minor league system. Right now, Judge is about the only one. Stanton was picked up from the Marlins. You got Anthony Rizzo from the Cubs. You got Joey Gallo from the Rangers. Yeah. So, I mean, you've got a lot of guys that are really good players, but they're at the end of their careers, and they're they're not what I consider to be Yankees. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I never really considered them Yankees either. I guess more and more I'm starting to see them as that, though. You know what I mean? Which is kind of neat. Kind of like,
I understand that.
I guess like A-Rod. Initially, it was kind of hard maybe to see him as a Yankee, but eventually he played so many years there that he's a Yankee. I know you said these guys are at the end of their careers, so maybe that won't have the same effect. But I don't know.
No. Anyway, though, I want to get back to Joseph a little bit on NBA basketball. Joseph is our resident NBA basketball expert. We had the NBA playoffs. The Golden State Warriors ended up winning the championship, defeating the Boston Celtics, who were kind of to me a little bit of a surprise. I really thought the Miami Heat were going to win the East and represent the East in the NBA Finals. Joseph, did it kind of play out maybe like you thought it would, or did you kind of think the Heat would be there as well?
I thought the Heat would be there coming out of the East. As far as the finals played out, it played out exactly how I thought they would. I saw something on, I guess, with ESPN before the finals that said some data thing they used, or some computer said that the Celtics had an 86% chance of winning the finals.
Right.
The series, which I thought was totally ridiculous because, at least 1 or 2 games, Curry's going to get hot and hit threes, which he did.
Right.
And then
Thompson's
going to get hot at least one game. And then the Celtics, they still don't have a superstar player that can put the team on his back and win a game. The Jason Tatum guy is a very good player, but he's a step below the top-notch players in the league still, even though I don't know, the media acts like he's a superstar. He's really not. So the finals, they played out like I thought they would. Celtics, they weren't ready to win a championship, but the free agency stuff, which I think kicked off officially July 1st, is always interesting.
It did.
Yeah, I think this year you had a lot of players with options, right? So it's like Harden declined his options. He's a free agent.
Right.
Russell Westbrook picked up his option clearly, obviously. He has a $47 million option. He's washed up.
Right.
You're obviously going to pick that up. So the Lakers are stuck with him now.
They could trade him, I guess.
That's the talk. Well, so, and then you have Durant, who requested a trade from Brooklyn. He signed an extension last summer. So he's got left on the deal. So obviously teams are going to want to trade for him because he's under contract for 4 more years, so it's not like he's a expiring contract where he's going to leave.
Right.
But so basically the Nets have to trade him now. They're giving into his whims. And then there's talk that they're going to go ahead and trade Kyrie Irving too. So then that way, basically they're just going to start over. So that's interesting. And then on the other hand, you have NBA teams handing out money I think I could get a 2-year deal for $8 million right now.
That'd be good.
Yeah, ESPN had they flashed the big red lineup at the bottom, breaking news that the Knicks gave some guy named Jalen Brunson 6 years, $120 million.
Jeez. I've never heard of the guy.
He's the Mavericks point guard, but that's where we are now. That the Knicks, the storied franchises, are giving huge deals to guys named Jalen Brunson. I mean, come on, I don't know what's going on in the NBA these days, but it's fallen far from what it used to be. I'll say that.
Well, I guess I don't follow it that much, but the interesting thing to me is, the Golden State Warriors, I'm not a big fan of the Warriors. I'm not a big fan of their players or their coach, but I think if you look at them, they're a pretty savvy team. I mean, they won all those championships back, 6-7 years ago. Then they had a lot of injuries, right? I mean, Thompson got hurt. Harden left. Durant left. So they end up tanking. I mean, they had they win 15 games one year. I mean, they were horrible. And then now they've turned it around. The guys have come back. They've put in a few other pieces and they've been able to get it done. Then you look at teams like the Dallas Mavericks. I mean, they got, what's the name of their big star, the Dallas Mavericks? I always get his name wrong.
Luka Doncic.
Luka Doncic. He's arguably maybe the best player in the NBA or close to it, but they can't seem to put the right pieces around him to get over the hump in the playoffs. And then you look at the Phoenix Suns. I mean, 2 years in a row. Last year they made it to the finals. This year they made it to the conference finals, but can't seem to get over the hump either. So, I mean, I guess I want your opinion on those type of teams. What is it? Do they just not have the right 1 or 2 superstars, or is it a matter of not putting enough bench players around, enough role players to take some pressure off those stars?
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, the Suns have enough pieces. They were in the finals. They have Devin Booker, who's a superstar. Chris Paul is older, but is a superstar type guy. They have DeAndre Ayton, the center, who was the number 1 pick overall a few years ago. So they have enough guys. For them, I think it's that's a great question. Maybe it's coaching. I don't know how much coaching plays a factor, and it does somewhat. Obviously, you have coaches like Phil Jackson who are much better than other ones, but Steve Kerr is a legitimately good coach. I mean,
he is. No, he is.
Those guys, and then you look at somebody like Dallas, Doncic is, like you said, arguably one of the best players in the NBA. Arguably the best player. He's just one of the best. But, I still think the Warriors, at one point they had Durant and Klay Thompson and Draymond Green. But even if you take out Durant, I mean, Steph Curry is still a top 20 all-time NBA player at this point. He's
right.
Career is a step above these other guys like Doncic, and maybe Doncic will get there one day. But we have an all-time great player on your team that obviously goes a long way in helping.
Right.
And then I think that those that kind of core guys, like you talked about the Yankees core for Thompson, Curry, and Draymond Green have stayed together for so long now. It's they're just a really good team. As opposed to LeBron, who's also a historically great NBA player. He just having constant new teammates every year, just random guys, basically that he handpicked.
Right.
Yeah. I think that the Warriors have a legitimate GM who's like you said he went through basically you could call it a tank, although
No, I probably
although
misspoke there.
Klay Thompson missed the whole season with the ACL injury. Curry broke his
Right.
hand so maybe they
Right.
just kind of weren't concerned with winning that year. But yeah, they brought it all the way back. So I think there's a lot of factors to play. Front office, having historically great players, and then those guys sticking together for a while.
I think you need at least obviously teams have to have a superstar, right? If you're going to win a championship, but
Right.
I feel like you need at least one other like really pretty big name guy.
Yeah.
Jordan, Pippen, like Kobe, Shaq, and then after Shaq, I guess you could say was I don't know who you'd say Kobe had really, but
Probably Paul
Gasol,
Gasol. Yeah,
yeah.
Paul Gasol.
But like, who does Luka Doncic have? Like, who's their second best player?
Oh, it was that
Luka-
Brunson guy. The Knicks assigned him.
Was there anybody that you think was at the caliber of these other kind of like second grade? Like Klay Thompson would be the second best on the Warriors. Like these guys are still really good players, like really
Yeah, they
big stars.
They don't have another guy like
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. You need to have two. I think you need to have an all-time great superstar, and you need to have another like pretty big superstar. I feel like if you're going to
I don't disagree with that.
the Suns are weird to me because Chris Paul is one of the best point of all time. He's old, like I said, he's older now, but he's still effective. And Devin Booker is, I don't know if I put him in superstar status, but he's close. I mean, so they have the two guys, and they have a couple other nice pieces.
And they won it a couple years ago, didn't they?
The Bucks beat them last year.
Yeah.
Did the Suns not win it like 2 years ago or 3 years ago?
No.
It's interesting. I think they said the Warriors were favorites next year already.
Yeah, they are. Yeah.
And then you look at a team like the Nets who had Durant, Irving, and Harden this year, and that's more than enough star power to.
That's more than enough, but they're strange superstars.
Yeah, they are. That's a good point, Nathan. I was just going to say that. I mean, Harden's a clown. I mean, the guy's a great player, but in an elimination game, whenever they got beat, I forget what round it was, but the guy was like, he took like 2 shots. I mean, you're the superstar. You got to put the ball up. I mean, you got to try to get the ball to the basket.
Yeah, the Celtics beat them in the first round.
Yeah. Okay. So he didn't try to take the ball to the basket. He didn't put the shots up.
And then he had that 1 year. Remember, this was a little while back, where like it looked like he either had like a really bad concussion or something. Maybe he did get it. Maybe he was just kind of like lost. It was weird.
Yeah, he hasn't shown up in the playoffs. I'll say that.
And then like I don't know if there's anything to this, but he's played for a lot of teams now, right? Like, what if you're that big of a superstar? I feel like unless you just really want to, maybe you just like LeBron. I don't know, but why would he keep changing teams?
The Thunder traded him. Thunder traded him before he really was who he is now.
Never to the Rockets, right?
Right, and then the Rockets, he established himself, and I think the deal there was, remember they did a thing and they tried it with him and Chris Paul, and that didn't work. And I think I want to say he requested to leave the Rockets, right? I don't think they just traded him.
I think he did. Yeah, he did.
Yeah, and
he went to somebody.
Yeah.
Oh, they traded.
He went to the
traded him the Nets. Let's trade him to the Sixers. Yeah.
Yeah, and the Nets. I mean, the Nets. You take Kyrie Irving. They brought. They didn't bring it on themselves. The state of New Jersey did, but they wouldn't allow him to play in any games. Because he wasn't vaccinated, and so you didn't have the guy for a lot of games.
Yeah.
And he is kind of a weird superstar, like Nathan said. I mean, when he wants to show up, he can be pretty good, but you never know when he's going to want to show up.
Right. Yeah, it's a weird situation. You can't really count on him to
No.
an effective piece of your team. It's kind of like you just have him, and then whatever you get out of him is a bonus.
How far did the Celtics go when they had him? What did he do with the Celtics?
They got to. Didn't they get to the conference finals with him? Or maybe they just got to the conference semifinals. I don't remember.
One of those years, bubble year, which is weird.
Oh, yeah, the bubble year.
Wait, no, that was with Brooklyn, wasn't it? The bubble year or no? He was with Boston in 17-18 and 18-19 seasons.
Yeah. Okay, so he wasn't with Boston in the bubble year?
Yeah, I guess not.
So. Yeah.
I think one of the best coaches in the NBA is Spoelstra at Miami.
Yeah.
I mean, I mean, look what the guy's done. You know, when he had the big three, LeBron, Bosh, who Shaq affectionately referred to as the RuPaul of big men, and then of course Dwayne Wade. All right, when they left, the Heat took a big nosedive, and everybody said, "Well, yeah, the only reason they did that is because of those guys." But he's done a tremendous job there. You know, I mean, building that team back up along with Pat Riley, and they've been a really good team, and he's a good coach. I think he's right up there when you start talking about the best coaches in the league.
I agree with that. Definitely, he definitely is a good coach, and
coaching in basketball is so ridiculous. I mean, in my opinion, but basketball is the one sport where having a great player can really a player can have the biggest effect on the game in basketball. I feel like.
Sure, yeah,
yeah, probably.
No, I agree with that, but I think you still have to be a good enough coach. Not so much early in the game, but when you get down to those last 3 or 4 minutes of the game, you have to be pretty good at deciding what play you're going to run, what defense you're going to run, who you're going to take out of the game from the other team, and so forth. I think that pretty much comes down to good coaching, you know.
I guess I just feel like if I'm playing the Warriors and it's late in the game, all right, let's guard Steph Curry. All right, I mean, like I don't, you know, what I mean, like, or if you have the ball in the Warriors, let's get it to Steph Curry and Steph just shoot it. I don't know. Like
yeah,
he's gonna do his
but,
thing. You know what I mean? Like, I don't
but
know.
if you're mapping out that last play to get the ball to Steph Curry, what if the other team's going to take him away? You know, I mean, then you got to figure out how you're going to get it to somebody else and then back to Steph Curry. So I don't know. I just think that yeah, I mean, I think they make their money in those last few minutes of the playoff games.
I don't know anything about actual plays, but
let me throw this question out to you guys, which, you know, we've talked a lot about general managers and moves that they've made. And of course, the NFL draft we had back in April. I think I know the answer to this question. At least I know how I would answer it. But of the three major sports, and I'm not considering hockey in this, even though they are, it's just that we're not big hockey fans in this country. Of baseball, football, basketball, which sport do you think it's toughest to be a general manager and build a team?
I think football, just because there's so many players on a team. Basketball, you only have I think 12 guys on the roster.
Right.
And there's a salary cap, but there's also they cap the, like you hear about basketball, you get a max contract or a super max.
Right.
Like there's a lot to each player. Baseball, there's no salary cap, so if you have a ton of money, spend a ton of money, and you have 25 guys, which is less. It's more than 12, but it's less than 53.
Right.
And with a salary cap, and yeah, it's just I think it's harder in football.
Nathan, what do you think?
I agree. I was going to cite the salary cap thing, but the roster number that's a good point too. And I feel like, what do you think of? Do you think of all the major sports, I feel like NFL GMs have the shortest leash. They're expected to win the quickest.
Yeah, yeah, maybe.
I feel like baseball. So what?
Might be true, actually.
I feel like baseball, they give them a little more, like they understand they're trying to like build a team, and like I don't know. I just feel like maybe because they get the season 162 games, you know, it's spread out more and you have more time. But I feel like NFL is a little more. They're expected to win immediately, and they have a shorter leash. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a good point, both of you, and I agree with all those points. I think, to me, I think this is kind of taken at a subset level, but I think the hardest GM job is the GM of a baseball team in those markets that don't have a lot of money. You know, I mean, like, think how tough it is for those guys to kind of try to come up with players, not only to win, but to just be competitive. You know, I mean, that's kind of, I mean, like if you're the Yankees or the Red Sox or the Dodgers, yeah, you might have a quote unquote luxury tax, but do they really care about that? You know, I don't think so. I mean, they say they do, but they're going to spend what they need to spend, right?
Why those teams that don't have any money have to rely on good scouting and drafting. So that way have guys come up, you keep them on the minimum salary for a few years. Hopefully they perform well those few years, and that's how you have good seasons. And then they get too good, you got to
let them go. That's right. You got to start that process all over again.
You can never really sustain like a dynasty if you're in one of those markets.
Right.
Right.
I mean,
and I think it's
closest. They're pretty good every year,
Who?
The Rays.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, the Rays do a good job of that. And I think football, I agree with everything you guys said. I think the reason those guys are on such a short leash is because of the salary cap. I mean, we see examples seems like every year of teams that were, 6-9 or 6-10 the year before. Now they're in the Super Bowl. Look at the Bengals. I mean, look at some of these other teams that have turned seasons around. So I think, if you're a general manager and you come in and you make a few moves here and there, I think your owner and your fans expect you to be good right away, because other teams have done it. And, with the salary cap, you're really not against the 8 ball. It's just a matter of making good, solid decisions of who you bring in and who you draft. And,
that's what I was about to say when you were making a point about the small market baseball teams. The owners and the fans of those small markets realize that, hey, we don't have any money to compete with the big guys. So there's not as much, we don't really expect you. We expect you to win, but we understand that if you don't, I mean, we're how we going to compete. But like you said, in the NFL, everyone has a salary cap. Why can't the Browns compete just as much as the Rams?
Sure,
what I mean?
Sure, they should be able to.
That's why I feel like that's
right. That's a good point.
Is a bigger deal too. How much?
No,
pressure,
that's an excellent point.
How much pressure is really on the Kansas City Royals front office or something? I know they've been good more recently, but
in baseball, they can always fall back on, look, our farm system's ranked, 4th or 5th.
Right.
Yeah, it's coming. In football, there's no such thing.
And what are the fans going to say? They have no idea. They'll take their word for it. Actually, I've been watching those backfield games. I don't think so. They're just okay. They'll tell you if you're the front office of MLB team, you can feed your fans whatever you want about the farm system. They're just going to take it because they don't know.
and your point right there is exactly what causes the football issue. The fans know exactly who the farm system players are because they watch them every Saturday. Right.
Yeah, exactly.
So they know if you draft a guy that they don't like, or that what do you draft that guy for?
Yeah, we had a good draft this year. They go, no, you didn't. I watched it. It was just 5 to 7 rounds.
You drafted this guy out of Ohio State. I watched him every Saturday. The guy couldn't even catch a pass or whatever. So
MLB team says we have a good draft. You look at their draft sheet, be like, okay, if you think so, I don't know. This guy was in high school.
Yeah, but when the baseball team announces that they drafted Joe Smith in the 9th round out of Augustana State, the fans are going to be like, all right, sounds good to me.
Even more out of a high school, like an 18-year-old kid out of high school.
Right. Yeah. Which is really.
Speaking of which, this is a little bit of a tangent, but I just thought I wanted to bring it up because we're talking about baseball. I don't know if this maybe this was fake. I don't know, but I saw a video on Instagram. Apparently, it was a 13-year-old kid who could throw 106 miles per hour. I don't know. He didn't look like he was 13 to me, but I don't know.
I don't buy that. Yeah, I don't buy that. No.
What'd you say, Joseph?
You get fooled by the internet a lot.
I do get fooled by the internet a lot, but they had a video of him throwing. But then I thought, well, he obviously doesn't look 13. But then I thought, why would they say that if it's that obvious that he's not? It's almost like it's like what do you call that? It's I forget the term, but it's like. If they would have said 16 or 17, you might be like, maybe. But to say something that's ridiculous as 13, why would they even do that? It's too far. So I don't think maybe he actually is 13. Why would they make that up?
So that's interesting. But so we've gotten through the NBA. Of course, hockey, for our hockey fans out there, the Colorado Avalanche won the Stanley Cup, which is
pretty easily, too, really.
Pretty good considering the fact that they had played the Lightning, who had won the last 2 Stanley Cups. So it was an interesting finals and a new Stanley Cup champion. And that's a tough road, the Stanley Cup playoffs. Very tough road.
I thought I saw something where the Avalanche player that won the what do they call it? The trophy that's the
Conn Smythe trophy.
Conn Smythe, I think, yeah, most valuable player during the Stanley Cup playoffs.
Right.
I think he was, if not the youngest to ever win it, he was one of the youngest, I think. But yeah, I'm not sure. He was pretty young. He's 23. So I heard that he was, like I said, if not the youngest, he was one of the youngest. So
yeah.
They have a good. I guess my point is they maybe they have a pretty young team that is going to be here for a while. I don't know.
Yeah, I think they will. I mean, I think they will.
Oh, he became he became only the third defenseman to win the Norris and Conn Smythe trophies in the same season.
Yeah.
I don't know what the Norris Trophy is. If somebody's listening who's a hockey fan, let us know.
That might have something to do with most valuable player, maybe. I don't know, but I know the Vezina Trophy is for the best goalie. That I know, but I'm not really sure about the Norris Trophy. But anyway, so hockey's wrapped up, and now we get into what's mostly known as the dog days of summer, where most of your major sports, hockey, basketball, and football, are not playing. Baseball is kind of the only game in town right now, until we get into August, when NFL camps will be opening up, and it'll be interesting. It'll be an interesting season coming up here with the NFL. You got Tom Brady back for another go round, and he's waiting on a $325 million contract from Fox to broadcast games when he comes out. So the rich get richer there, but he'll be back for one more year at least. You got Aaron Rodgers, who seems to have made peace with the Packers now, and even though they've taken away his best receiver, I don't see how who he's going to throw to. But we'll see what happens with the Packers. And the Steelers are looking at a new quarterback for the first time in 2004. So there's a lot of good storylines in the NFL that we'll be following here fairly soon.
Yeah, I think it's kind of strange what the Browns are trying to do at quarterback. I mean, I know they getting Deshaun Watson. I don't know why they would feel like they need to do that, but
yeah, I'm glad you brought that up, Nathan. That's kind of interesting. I've been following a little bit about that. Of course, he was cleared of there's no civil suit that was going to be brought against him. But now the NFL, what?
No criminal charges.
No, that's right. No criminal charges. That's right. So there's still a possibility for civil suits, and the NFL now is negotiating with his lawyers. The NFL wants a year-long suspension for him. So he's going to get suspended in some shape or form. And now you've got Baker Mayfield sitting there that you haven't been able to trade. He's obviously going to be on the roster. So what are you going to do? I mean, you may have to play him, and that's going to be an awkward.
I feel like he is. Well, I don't know what I guess he has no say in the matter, right? Unless he.
No.
I don't know. I feel like neither one of them want each other. You know what I mean? Like, so I feel like he's going to be on a different roster if anybody else wants him. Before
I mean, them signing Deshaun Watson obviously means they don't want Mayfield anymore. They kept him around just for a reason.
Right. Yeah. Right. But I think, and they know, to steal a great scene from the movie Little Big League, what's the going rate for an absent-minded quarterback who can't seem to throw the football? So, in other words, he's got to perform well, because if he doesn't, that just takes his value down even more.
Right.
So the Browns are really sitting in the catbird seat there.
Yeah, I mean, you mean like, I guess if you think deciding between Deshaun Watson and Baker Mayfield's a good position, I don't know. I think either way they're kind of in trouble.
No, what I mean is that if Deshaun Watson does get suspended for a significant amount of games, you've got a quarterback that's, even though he didn't have a good year last year, he's proven he can get you to the playoffs. So you have a good chance of playoffs with him. And even if he has a great year, let's say Mayfield has to play the entire season and he has a really, really great year. All right, well, next year you just let him go, or trade him, and you got Deshaun Watson if that's who you really want, So I think they're in a good position, the Browns, for them. I don't think it would be for Baker Mayfield, maybe, unless he does well.
Yeah, that's a good point. I don't know. I would like to have a better option than either one of those guys if I was an NFL team, but yeah.
I don't know. I mean, it's obviously, it's really tough. And I don't think he's going to play. I'd be surprised if he plays half the games. I really will.
Deshaun Watson?
Yeah, I really will. I mean, he's going to get suspended. There's no question about that. It's just a matter of for how long. So, but anyway, it's been a good podcast. I mean, we've talked about a lot of issues. obviously we made up for a lot of lost time since we've been with you all. And we're excited about kicking off a new season here with the podcast and with football coming up. Obviously, football right around the corner, college football, professional football, baseball will be hitting the halfway pole pretty soon. We'll have the All-Star game, and then we'll be down to the pennant races. So it's getting to be that really good time in the sports calendar when we hit August and September. The weather starts to cool down a little bit, and before you know it, every weekend is going to be just chock full of sporting events. So, any last words, guys, before we sign off on this episode?
No, not really from me.
Okay, Nathan, how about you?
I'm good.
Okay, well, we've certainly enjoyed bringing you this episode number 116. We kind of just talked randomly about a lot of different issues. We want to hear what you have to say about it. Make sure you check us out on Twitter at PressBoxPod, on Instagram at PressBoxPod, and of course, the YouTube channel, the PressBox Podcast. Let us know what you think on some of the things we talked about. We're going to try to be a little more regular with our episodes, however you want to define regular, but we look forward to bringing you lots more interactive talk on the sports world as it begins to progress here over the next couple months. So for my co-host, Joseph, for our producer, Nathan, who always does a great job getting these things out, I'm Ralph Miranda. We thank you for joining the PressBox Podcast, and we'll see you next time.